So what's the ending to the story about the contract talks between Hollywood writers and producers? That has yet to be written. I don't know. But talks ended last night without progress. The existing contract has expired. Both sides look to be ready for a strike as early as tomorrow. Jonathan Handel is an entertainment lawyer with the firm Troy Gould. He's also worked for the Writers Guild of America. That's the WGA. And he joins us now from Los Angeles. So, Jonathan, there hasn't been a writer's strike since 1988. What are the signs indicating in this time around?
Suhanna, thanks for having me. A motion picture script has 3 acts. We're still in the first act, but it's not looking to be a comedy. It's looking to be a very sad story. The signs are not good. The parties are very far apart. The rhetoric is still loud and contentious. And
the sticking point, what would you say it is? I think I've been reading about, DVD royalties. Is that right?
Well, that's part of it. There are 3 main issues, but there's one word, and the word is technology. DVD royalties, DVD or home video was the new technology 20 years ago, and the residual formula, the royalty formula that got baked into the Writers Guild agreement persists to this day, and it's not an advantageous one. What we're looking at going forward is formulas related to new media, internet, cell phones, and so forth. And there again, the writers are afraid of making a bad deal, and the studios don't want to make an advantageous one.
But, I read something about the studios saying this is a complete roadblock to any further progress. Is that just rhetoric, do you think?
I don't think it's just rhetoric at this point, and I don't think the Writers Guild position, which is that we've got to make progress or there's no deal, I don't think that's rhetoric either. That's why I think that the parties are very far apart, and until we see some motion, some softening, which I think unfortunately is going to mean a strike and probably not a short one, we're not going to see progress.
The last one was 22 weeks long. Boy, that took a real bite out of the industry. Help me to understand the kind of bite that this could have, the impact of it. How would it move through the system?
Well, it's the industry and it's the local economy. And the economic impact 20 years ago was apparently about $500 million. The LA County Economist is forecasting about $1 billion impact on the economy if the strike is roughly as long.
Wow.
It starts with television. What you see as a viewer will start with television programming. First with the late night shows that we have here on the air, the Lenos and Lettermans and Saturday Night Live and so forth. Those shows don't have scripts banked up. They're very timely. They're day-by-day timely shows. And so those shows will go into reruns or go dark immediately. Later on, you'll see some impact on comedy programming, so-called half-hour programming, because they've got scripts a few weeks out, but not indefinitely. The drama shows are further out. And one of the things that we ought to look for is, will there be new programming still on the air, sufficient scripts, in February, which is when the Nielsen ratings get recalculated. That has an economic impact. That has an economic impact because that's how the ratings are determined and the advertising rates.
And I suppose motion pictures, the last to be affected, perhaps?
That's right. The production cycle for a movie, the development, the writing, the shooting, and so forth of a movie, the post-production and editing, is a much longer process than with television programs. And so with movies, we really aren't going to see a significant effect unless the strike is quite long. We did see a lot of movies go into production very quickly. A lot of scripts get finished on very tight deadlines in the last few days, people working 24/7 to get their drafts in. But the contract is now expired, and the situation is uncertain. If a strike is called, people can't continue working, obviously.
And Jonathan, are the studios trying to, attract younger writers from some of the schools, that kind of thing, to cross the picket line, get a job in the industry?
The studios can't do that. They're signatories to the unions, to the union agreements, which means they're not allowed to employ non-union writers. That's a key aspect of a labor agreement, because otherwise there wouldn't be any strength to a union at all. But what we will see, and what is dangerous, is that the new media sector of the economy is, of course, centered more in Silicon Valley than Hollywood. It's a completely non-unionized sector. And so what the studios are afraid of, if they agree to minimum terms relating to new media writing, they're afraid of the exact same thing that the old-line automakers and old-line airlines are afraid of, which is that they've got high unionized labor costs, but the new companies don't.
Final question for you, Jonathan. We've got about 15 seconds left. The ripple effect of this. I mean, I understand you're getting calls from florists and restaurants, et cetera, about, laying people off.
Right. Right. People are already planning their layoffs. I think the layoffs will probably start quite soon. That's the human face of $1 billion impact. That's the human face of a strike, and the question is going to be, at the end of the day, will there be gains for the Writers Guild, and will the gains be worth the pain?
We'll certainly be watching, as I know you will be. Jonathan Handel joining us from LA. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's the CBC's Neil Herland in New York. While the strike has just begun for Broadway stagehands, the writers over in Hollywood are becoming old hands, if you will, on the picket line. They are entering week 2 of their walkout, one that's now affecting other jobs in TV and movie production. Joining us to talk about that and more is Jonathan Handel. He's an entertainment attorney for Troy Gould in Los Angeles. Jonathan, first off, what is the latest that you're hearing from your connections, your calls on negotiations to end the writers' strike?
Good morning, Suhanna. Unfortunately, what we're hearing is nothing good. It really is can only be described as punishment time. The writers are trying to inflict maximum damage on the studios, maximum economic damage, in order to force them to the bargaining table. But the studios and networks are saying they will not go to the bargaining table while the strike continues. Meanwhile, they are attempting to punish the Writers Guild for daring to go out on strike. They've indicated that they'll be attempting to make an early deal with the Directors Guild, whose contract, like the Actors Guild, doesn't expire until June 30th. Meanwhile, at least certain of the networks have been firing the personal assistants to the showrunners who are out on strike. And those are people, in many cases, who are young, aspiring writers who view the showrunners as mentors. So it really is an attempt to make the pain personal. There are no dates set for resumption of talks, and in fact, what we're told in Variety this morning is that even informal talks have largely ceased.
So certainly not an optimistic picture from there. Can you give me an update, Jonathan, on what productions have been shut down because of the strike?
Yes, there are a number of them. My list includes Desperate Housewives. I should say that the LA Times is reporting about 9 shows shut down in addition to the late night shows. Some of those include Desperate Housewives, Lost, the 24 season premiere has been postponed indefinitely, The Office, Family Guy, 2.5 Men. Those are all shut down. The soap operas may be endangered several weeks out as well. And you know, these are the daytime serialized dramas. One episode follows another. Because of that, they can't show reruns if they go dark. So they're in a very difficult position.
You know, I think the last time we talked, you had mentioned perhaps series could go till the new year, or at least till Christmas. Do you get the sense that the studios are going black faster than they expected? I mean, perhaps they don't have as many scripts as they thought to get them through the dispute?
Well, that's exactly right, and that is one reason. The other is that the showrunners are people who are so-called producer-writers. They're referred to as hyphenates. And that's because their duties include not only being the head writer on a show, but actually running the show. Just as you think of directors in a movie as supervising all aspects of the movie and, in a sense, being management, the writer-producers, the showrunners, are the people on whose shoulders the entire show rests. And so they're responsible for the employment of 250 to 300 people per show. The writer-producers are supposed to, under their contracts, be performing their producing duties even though they can't perform writing duties. But what they've said is, number one, that those duties are too intertwined to perform the one and not the other, and secondly, that they're simply not going to perform under their contracts. As a result, when you've got your showrunner out, walking the picket lines, or in the negotiating room, because several of them are, in fact, on the bargaining team, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to run a show. And that's why we're seeing this early breakdown. The showrunners are critical.
So if the showrunners are out, let's talk about the ripple effect. I mean, there's got to be electricians, artists, makeup people, other skilled workers who are out as well. What is that ripple that you're seeing?
Well, you are starting to see layoffs of that sort. And I wouldn't say that they're reportedly massive yet, but as time goes on, they will be. And the actors face a special problem as well, because the way network television is developed in the U.S., there's a so-called pilot season, which is a few months out. And during that season, all the pilot scripts that have been written, which in this case are not being written, are cast. So there are many jobs all of a sudden for writers, or for actors rather, and they appear in the pilots, and then the networks look at the various pilots that have been produced and decide which ones they're going to go to series. If pilot season doesn't happen, actors don't work. That also disrupts the next year's television season. And you're going to see, as a result of that, some significant erosion in the actors' support for the writers, which, as your viewers know, many of them know, has been significant, as we've talked about in the past.
You know, and with we would think with that significant support from big-name actors, from producers, that in the end it would help them to get what they want. But you're saying, well, it could hurt.
Well, it could hurt because there will be erosion of support, and the real thing that's going to hurt is that the studios, as I said, and the networks, the so-called producers, are going to attempt to make this deal with the DGA. And when they do, there'll be a lot of pressure on the Screen Actors Guild to accept that deal, the terms of the deal that are transferable, that relate to each other, dealing with residuals and the main issues. And that, in turn, if that happens, would leave the writers out alone, on their own, still striking for a better deal. And the usual custom is that the deals reflect each other. So the writers would be in a very difficult position.
We'll certainly be watching, as I know you will. But Jonathan Handel joining us from Los Angeles. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.